Oh no, what's going on here? Hey everyone, I've got Nikki here with me and I've just run through, she wants to keep this 1GD, it's a 2017, and I'll just run through what I would do if I was keeping this 2017 1GD. It's got 133,000 Ks on the clock, in case you missed it. I'm not here to bag out 1GDs. I reckon the engine itself's probably all right. Bit undersized for the vehicle, depends what you're doing with it, but if you're happy with it, that's okay. As I said, the earlier ones, very similar to the 1KD, but of course, I mean, with power and torque, that sort of thing, but this engine will be quieter and smoother, so I can see why people like them. Bit more like a petrol engine, if you know what I mean. But there's three main problems we're going to talk about just quickly, and how I think mainly it's emission control is what's caused the issues. We're just sort of saying if you didn't have a DPF, then you wouldn't have an EGR cooler, then you wouldn't have soot in your oil, and you might not be having time and chain guide problems, perhaps. But what would I do if I had to keep this 1GD? We'll try and keep it short and sweet. What I said was, well, the DPF, you're stuck with that. You can't really get rid of the DPF because that would certainly be illegal. It would be expensive, and then when you went to sell the vehicle, you wouldn't be getting a roadworthy then because it's not there, and it could cause some other issues. Depends who did the work if they did that. So I don't recommend removing the DPF. You've got a 10-year warranty on it. What happens at 11 years, you'd have to ask Toyota. So it's a known problem. You've given me warranty for 10 years. What happens if I have a problem at 11 years? So maybe discuss that with them before you finalise your decision how long you want to own one of these engines, which I'll say, that in itself depreciates the value of the vehicle, because if everybody knows about it and it's got a 10-year warranty, well, if everybody doesn't want them after 10 years because it's not covered and it's going to be expensive, then it hurts the value of the vehicle. And once again, we discussed the class action, how if you sell your vehicle, then you're not entitled to the money you might have lost from the value of the vehicle. Or if you accept the repairs, you're not entitled to the money either. So I don't know, that's a bit of a separate story in a separate video. We talked about it a bit in another one you may have seen, but we'll talk about it again in another video later. So subscribe, turn the bell on if you don't want to miss it. So the DPF's got to stay there. That's a bit of a, how do I explain it? There's lots of people that have DPF problems, but the majority won't. So there's lots of these cars, lots of these engines. A lot of people are going to have problems, but it's going to be a small percentage. Most people are going to get lucky with the DPF. So are you feeling lucky? Are you feeling lucky?
I am.
You're feeling lucky? Good, okay.
Positive thinking.
That's it. Now, so there's not a lot you can do with the DPF. It's just what it is. What I would do if it was my vehicle, I wouldn't use it for as much for short trips. I'd make sure I was aware when it was doing a DPF burn, and when it was, I would probably make sure I keep running it, try and get on the freeway and just give it a good 5-10 minutes is all it takes to make sure it's nice and hot, so it gets a good burn every now and then. Because the problem is, if you don't know when it's doing a burn and you switch it off, interrupting it all the time, they might say, oh, it's not going to be an issue, but that's the sort of thing that could be an issue in my opinion. But you know, everyone's got an opinion. They're like belly buttons, right? So if you didn't have the DPF, then we wouldn't be talking about the EGR cooler, but we're talking about the EGR cooler because on the 1GD, once again, it's quite common that there's some sort of perforation. I'm not the expert on it. The EGR cooler's down here, that stainless steel box down there, and you can see it's got coolant hoses connected to it. And obviously we know it's a good idea to make the air cold, because all the air goes past the turbo, gets pumped and then pushed down through these pipes in front, under here in front of the radiator, comes back out at this side and into the engine. Nice cool air, beautiful. But to reduce nitrogen oxides, they thought it was a good idea to put exhaust gases in. You only need a very small amount of inert gases to cool the combustion for the nitrogen oxides. But what they probably should have done, if they were smart, is taken it after the DPF, because then it would have been clean. But they didn't do that. So you got, you know, we don't want to go into too much detail actually, so let me just go back to the cooler. The cooler, it's got coolant in it, and it's also got air, right? So the air that came through this pipe, right, goes into the engine, but there's also air that goes through the EGR cooler that cools out its exhaust gases, air, right? And if there's a perforation, a leak between the air and the coolant pressure will push it into the air, into the intake, and it'll go through your engine. So what would I do? Every week, I would be checking my coolant level over here at this coolant bottle. When the engine's cold on flat level ground once a week, you know, I'm not saying this is the right level or not. You can quite obviously see it's a pretty good level, but the engine would need to be cold the same every morning. Every Saturday morning, you just open the bonnet and go, Yep, it's still the same, no issues. While you're at it, have a quick look around for leaks. It's good. You're meant to do these regular checks on your oil levels and coolant, but of course we all don't because the vehicles are quality. They don't leak or use oil. So you only really need to check that if you've taken it somewhere for a service to the kids type thing, because you never know in case they forgot to put the sump plug in tight or something like that. So you've got to check these things. But you get my drift. If you've got that internal leak in the EGR cooler, which is quite common on the 1GD, not the 1KD, and I also pointed out that I think these are about $2,000, where the 1KD ones are under $1,000. We do know one 1KD one that leaked, but there's quite a few on the 1GD. So just something to be aware of, to keep an eye on. So check your coolant level. DPF, just try and, is yours set up, so do you know when it's doing a DPF burn? Do you know about that or anything at all?
No.
No, so you don't know, yeah. So you can get this set to be put in a different mode. I can't remember what you call it, but the Toyota dealer say I want to be able to see when it's doing a DPF burn, so then you know. I just think it might help if you keep it running. You know, it doesn't mean you never interrupt it, but the thing is, if you're doing a lot of short trips, which you are, yeah.
Yeah. I normally do. If it says that it's burning, I normally make sure.
Oh, so it does tell you when it's doing it.
With the newer model.
Yeah, right. Oh, on the other car, that's right, exactly.
Yeah, and then I just kind of run it
exactly, and that's
with
good.
This one, sometimes we just don't know.
They can put you in another mode for you, so it pops up on the dash like the other car. So maybe ask them to do that. I can't remember what it's called, but it's not my department. I don't do this. You know what I mean? So DPF, EGR cooler, and the timing chain and guides is the other issue. And the thing I'm trying to say is, because of the DPF, the EGR cooler's there, because of the EGR flow, the soot from the exhaust is in the combustion, and it blows past the rings into your oil. That's what contaminates your oil on a nice, clean, efficient engine like this. And that's what this is. It's a very clean, efficient engine, even cleaner with the DPF. But I'm just trying to point out, if that stuff wasn't there, a lot of these problems probably wouldn't be happening, because it's the EGR, the exhaust gas recirculation, that black soot that's getting put back into your engine intake, that goes into the combustion, that blows past the rings, that contaminates the oil, that makes it black so fast, that deteriorates the oil that's meant to be protecting that timing chain and guides, could be a major contributing factor. So good quality clean oil would be another good solution to avoid this, one of the biggest issues, because I think last time I checked, it was about $4,000 worth of parts to do that. You got to take the engine out. It's about a couple of days work, 3 or 4 days, whatever, depends where you go. So it's thousands of dollars. It's major work on the 1GD. And we've seen a few failures around. We don't know what the reason for the engine replacement were. So if anybody's ever had an engine replacement on a 1GD and you want to contact me and tell me the story, that'd be good, because we have come across, let's just say, to be modest, a couple, to say the least, where the engines have been replaced, but we don't know why, because it wasn't us. But my point is, what did I say? Probably 5,000k oil changes for now. I can't tell you to switch the the EGR off, because that would certainly be illegal. But if it wasn't illegal and it was my car, I would certainly, first thing I'd do would be switching the EGR off, because that's going to do a number of things. It's probably going to stop any coolant flow from this thing, right? I'm not sure on this, because I haven't looked at the setup compared to a 1KD. On a 1KD, it would certainly stop any coolant being able to get into the engine. This one, I'd have to look at it more. I don't work on these, busy with 1KDs by choice. If I wanted to be really busy, actually, I'll be working on V8s. I saw 3 200 series yesterday, and they're all blowing heaps of smoke out the back. So much money to be made on 200 series V8s. But I think they must be paying for the car and the fuel still. They can't afford the 8 injectors and 8 fuel pipes, because heaps of smoke out there yesterday. But at the end of the day, clean oil. So 5,000k oil changes, EGR off. When the oil starts staying cleaner, you might be able to move back to 10,000k oil changes. That doesn't mean you need to get the car serviced every 5,000Ks. It just means whoever services the car, whether it's you or wherever you take it, you just say, just oil change, not filter, to get all that dirty soot-loaded oil out of the engine. And what's going to happen over time now? So this vehicle, what is it? What do we say, 7 years old?
17.
Yeah, so there's going to be a amount of dirtiness in the engine and whatever, and doing more regular oil changes is going to help clean that up. So it's going to stay dirty for a while, but it's going to slowly clean up. Whether you turn the EGR off or not, if you do turn the EGR off, it's going to get even cleaner, and that's what you want, and it's going to help your timing chain and guides, I believe, and then you'll be one of the lucky ones. So that's the best advice I can give. Bada bing, bada boom. Stay tuned. More info in another video. Catch you then. See ya.